Hey everyone, Michael Pickens here with the Libertarian Leadership Weekday Candidate and Activist Spotlight podcast. Today we are continuing from our interview yesterday that we had about the ballot access situation in Georgia. As you know, yesterday Colin McKinney was on. He's running for insurance commissioner out in Georgia. And today we have Brian Allen, who is the vice chair of the Libertarian Party of Georgia, and he's also assisting with ballot access and fixing Georgia's ballot access laws. So, Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, it's a lot of work running a political party, and obviously, you're the vice chair, so you're assisting the chair, but there's still a lot of responsibility to that and responsibility with assisting ballot access and changing laws. So, the first question I have for you is why? Why are you doing this?
Right. So I've always had kind of libertarian leanings going back for as far as I can remember, but I became politically apathetic when I saw that Democrats were doing the same kind of thing when they were in charge as Republicans were doing. So I just kind of fell out of the political scene. But then during COVID, when I saw that our liberties were being violated just routinely and no one was really doing anything about it, I realized I needed to do something about it. So that's when I started getting active and understanding that I have to do something.
Gotcha. So, along the lines of be the change you want to see in the world, right?
Right.
Absolutely. Well, if we duplicated Brian Allen all across the country in every county across the country, we would be in a really good place, right? Because if we had people that cared enough to take action, which this is what this podcast is about, right? It's about helping showcase candidates that are making a difference and activists that are making a positive difference as well. So, can you talk about the current ballot access situation going on in Georgia?
It's very terrible. Georgia has some of the worst ballot access laws in the entire country. Um, it takes a 1% petition to get onto the ballot for a statewide race and a 5% petition to get onto any other districted race. Historically, we were able to automatically get ballot access for our statewide candidates because we managed to get onto the ballot decades ago through the petitioning process. And then we were able to stay on by getting 1% of the vote in the elections. But a few years ago now, one of the races that we relied on to maintain that access was canceled. So we basically got kicked off of the ballot because of legal shenanigans, essentially.
Do you feel like they did that on purpose?
No, I don't think so. It was like a byproduct of people were trying to fix. We have public service commission races, which is what happened, which are elected statewide, but are representing districts. So the argument was that these candidates should only be elected in their districts rather than statewide. That argument ended up failing, but as a result of it, the races were canceled for multiple years.
Gotcha. And then, so to get ballot access for the statewide candidates, you need to get at least 1% in a statewide race, and that includes president.
So that it does not include president. That's the one race it doesn't include, and
Oh,
only because the laws are so egregious that they've been challenged previously. So there's currently an injunction against the Secretary of State from even enforcing the ballot access laws for presidential. So for presidential and presidential only, there is a 7,500 signature requirement, just flat out. And then also, if you have ballot access in at least 20 other states, then you automatically get it in Georgia, again, specifically for presidential. So we're in the strange situation where it's easier to get onto the ballot for President of the United States in Georgia than it is to get onto the ballot for Public Service Commission.
gotcha. Yeah. So how many signatures again to get on the ballot?
So it's 1% of total registered voters, which equals out to about like 82,000 signatures.
Wow. And for anyone watching, that's a lot of signatures. And it is a number that's probably too much for volunteers, right? So you got to pay people to collect signatures. Are you guys doing that?
Right. So realistically, in order to obtain that number, you need a combination of volunteer effort and paid petitioning. One or the other is not really sufficient. And it's a big lift, especially recently in elections. There's been kind of price inflation in the prices for paid petitioners. So it's even more expensive than it used to be.
Gotcha. What does it cost per signature, approximately?
I mean, it costs like upwards of $15, $20 per signature.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a lot of money. That is a whole lot of money to get on the ballot. So are you guys currently raising funds for that?
Yeah, so we do have, if someone wants to donate specifically for that, they can. We accept donations through our website, lpgeorgia.com,
Mhm.
and you can specify that your donations go towards ballot access if you wish.
Okay, so if there's people watching who are interested in making sure that your candidates are on the ballot in Georgia, donating at the Libertarian Party of Georgia website, which is lpgeorgia.com, would be the way to do it. Now, I've interviewed a couple of candidates that are running currently in your state. How many candidates total do you have that are running for statewide offices?
So for statewide office, we have governor, Senate, Secretary of State, Commissioner of Agriculture, and Commissioner of Insurance and Public Service Commission District 5.
Wow, okay, so you guys have a solid slate that you're looking to get on the ballot.
Right.
I mean that, most states, libertarian parties are not running that many statewide candidates, but that's amazing because if you do get on the ballot, hopefully you do, people will have multiple choices for libertarians. They could literally vote, libertarian down the line. Sounds like it.
Yeah, you could definitely do, the libertarian ticket vote if you wanted to,
Do you
but
have
it's
straight ticket voting there?
no, not in Georgia.
Okay. Well, that's good. Yeah, straight ticket voting is tough. You familiar with that where you just hit
Yeah.
Republican and it just
Hmm.
fills in all the Republican votes and people, yeah, because there's
Yeah.
sometimes, yeah. Okay,
Yeah, we
cool.
don't have that,
So,
but it is all contingent on us being able to get this 1% petition done. Because the way it works in Georgia is you can nominate candidates um, by convention if you do a single petition for a political party, but again, it is 1%.
yeah, so you don't have to collect signatures for each candidate. You just collect them once for the party and then you go from there, right?
Right. So you can do that. Individual candidates can do their own petitioning, but it's simpler if everyone does it on one petition. Although the numbers do work out strangely, as you might imagine, it's kind of complicated in that the numbers vary based on the election that was held previously. So for us, we
Mhm.
need to go off of 2024 numbers. Whereas if you were running for governor, say, then you would go off of 2022 numbers.
Gotcha. Okay. So you are also at the same time working to fix the election laws there. What is it that you're doing?
Right. So we are basically just asking legislators in Georgia to fix the obviously ridiculous laws that we have. There is no justifiable reason I've ever heard for why the ballot access requirements should be this stringent. Like
Mhm.
the usual justification for having any ballot access laws at all is to prevent overcrowding on the ballot so you don't get, upwards of, 20, 30 candidates. But if that's the actual reason, then Georgia's laws have swung way too far in the other direction to the point where no one has managed to qualify for a congressional race in Georgia in over 60 years through petitioning.
Yeah, besides Republicans and Democrats, because they're guaranteed on the ballot no matter what.
Yeah, right. They've never had to petition. The law was created in the first place to exempt them right from the start. So they've never had to do it.
Yeah, so you have these two organizations that arguably are the only two organizations with the resources to even collect 82,000 signatures, but they don't even have to, correct?
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting story about how the ballot access laws came about in the first place. It dates back to the 1940s because Georgia's original ballot access laws didn't have any requirement at all.
Hmm.
Um, that's not to say that elections in Georgia were great or anything, because we're talking about Jim Crow era in Georgia. But what happened was the Communist Party, of all things, attempted to qualify to run candidates, and the Secretary of State at the time just unilaterally kicked them off the ballot. And then the General Assembly soon followed up with the 5% petition requirement that we're still dealing with today.
So we can blame the communists for this.
Sure.
That was a joke. We actually can't because it's not their fault. They didn't implement this, right? So it's the freedom-loving people that decided that they were going to restrict the freedom of the citizens to actually run for office. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it
Possibly.
was the clearly the elected legislators at the time
Mhm.
put in these requirements to keep other options off of the ballot. It is clear that that was the intent.
So you had said that you're talking to current state legislators about fixing this. What do they say when you go talk to them? Right, especially the Democrats that claim to be, for democracy, they need to save democracy, and then they have these laws that extremely restrict the ability of the average citizen to participate in the democracy that they say they support.
Right. So usually they're sympathetic. The main objection that I've heard has to deal with runoffs. If you aren't aware, in Georgia, you have to get over 50% of the vote in order to win. And
Hmm.
if you don't, then the election goes to a runoff. So the usual thing people will say is, well, if we have more options on the ballot, that increases the likelihood for a runoff, that increases
Good.
costs for elections in Georgia.
Well, I mean, so their argument is because they don't want to do a runoff, they're going to restrict everyone's ability to even participate in democracy, to participate in running for office, unless they choose one of the old parties.
Right. And especially since we even have a solution already for runoffs, like ranked choice voting solves the runoff problem right then and there.
Mhm.
So it's not even really an excuse.
Yeah, so it seems like they're possibly lying. I know I've talked to legislators before, and they'll semi agree with you to kind of placate you, right? And they do this a lot with people. Oh, I understand the situation. I understand this, but, and then they always add the but, right? And then they give the reason why. But runoff, or it's going to cause a runoff, and that's going to cost more money. So thanks for meeting with me, Brian. But goodbye.
Yeah, I don't usually like to kind of guess at people's motivations.
I
I mean,
do.
I have talked to people who are sympathetic with even ranked choice voting. So they actually are hopeful to get that passed as well. But in the
Okay.
meantime, they still have this issue with it.
So then are those people actually putting forth legislation to implement ranked choice voting and then it gets shut down or not out of committee? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, that has happened. We had just last year, the Republicans in the Georgia Senate passed a bill to outlaw ranked choice voting, even though ranked choice voting already isn't legal, except for the situations where it is legal for military and overseas voters. So it was a bill that banned ranked choice voting where it's already banned and allowed ranked choice voting where it's already allowed. A bill that does nothing.
So they preemptively banned it. So then it
I
would
mean, they
take, go ahead.
yeah, they preemptively tried to pass it. I mean, it didn't end up passing the entire General Assembly. It
Oh,
passed the
okay.
Senate, um,
Gotcha.
mainly because it was a total waste of time and did nothing. Because ranked choice voting already isn't allowed for most citizens in Georgia.
Man, that is crazy. Tony Williams running for justice of the peace. Hey, Tony, he says, I am against any policy that restricts voting and creates obstacles to ballot access. Tony's actually going to be on the show next Friday. So I think most libertarians are against policies that create obstacles to ballot access. We deal with this every presidential year across the country where we have to regain ballot access and spend millions of dollars just to get on the ballot. And it sounds like you guys are going to have to spend a significant amount of money to regain ballot access, right?
Yeah, if laws stay that the way they are, it would be a very significant lift to get back onto the ballot.
Yeah, so if you don't get it this time around, like you have to get it next time. Otherwise, our presidential candidate isn't even going to be listed in Georgia. Is that correct?
No, so that is the one saving grace is that
Oh, the
for the presidential
7,500.
candidate, since we have the different requirement, as long as affiliates across the country, at least 20 of them, can maintain ballot access, then we will be able to field our presidential candidate in 2028.
Gotcha, but that's just the presidential candidate,
Yeah, only
right?
president, yes.
So it doesn't count for any of the other races. So you guys are still kind of screwed. And I'm assuming most of these other races that you're running right now, statewide races, are 4-year terms.
Yes.
Okay, so then you'd have to wait 4 years or 3 years to even start collecting the signatures again. And then how much time do they give you to collect the signatures?
So for the statewide petition, you get 15 months.
Okay, well
It's
that's
actually an interesting story in that no one even attempts to do this to the point where the form to do it didn't even exist. So we had to work with the Secretary of State's office to even get it created for us to start gathering signatures.
wow, that is crazy. Joe Hanush out of Florida said the Florida government banned ranked choice voting here. So it sounds like they did something similar, but they were able to actually pass it through the House, and the governor signed it into law. So, man, these authoritarians just do not like giving people choices, do they?
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, with ranked choice voting in particular, people get into their heads that it favors one side or the other, even though that doesn't make any sense if you think about it for a minute.
Hmm. Throw some logic in there because first past the post, which the system most states use, it favors one side or another, depending on how many votes someone gets, right? That's the whole point of it. Now,
Yeah,
can you break down ranked choice voting for some of the people that are watching that might not know how it works?
sure. So it's actually really simple. Um, so normally when you go in to vote, you pick your candidate, like this is who I want to vote for, and then that's that. Whereas with ranked choice voting, you can rank the candidates that you like. So say, I like the libertarian candidate the most, you put them as number one. And then if you think someone else is like, well, I don't really like this candidate, but they're better than the other alternative, then you can put them as number two. So then what
Mm-hmm.
happens is if your number one choice loses, then your vote goes towards your number two choice until there's an eventual winner.
Gotcha. So Republicans are against this? Would you say that most Republicans are
In
against
Georgia, they
this?
are, yeah.
Gotcha. That's interesting because wouldn't they, a lot of Republicans say that libertarians pull votes from the Republican Party, from the Republican candidate, even though we know that it's fairly equal across the board, where the votes come from. Or there's a lot of libertarians that if there isn't a libertarian on the ballot, we just don't vote at all. And I'm kind of in that situation where if there isn't a good candidate on the ballot, I just kind of just don't even mess around.
Yeah, you would think so. Like their reasoning doesn't make any sense, but people have just got into their head that ranked choice voting somehow helps, Democrats or left-leaning candidates, and that's just what they run with.
Interesting. Joe Hanush says all ranked choice voting really is instant runoff. It doesn't favor any old party.
Yeah, which is since Georgia already has runoff elections, like you have to get a majority of the vote in order to win in Georgia.
Hmm.
So the way it is now, you know, if you don't get a majority of the vote, then you just have to go through essentially just a runoff that's not instant. So all instant
Yeah.
runoff voting does is make it immediate instead of having to wait another month and doing an expensive other election.
Yeah, so that actually is a good argument for it. If their argument is that, we're going to have to deal with a runoff election, like Chase Oliver, caused with what Warnock and I don't remember the other guy's name
Herschel
when he
Walker,
ran for Herschel Walker, yeah, when he ran for U.S. Senate, right? So,
right?
because I remember, a lot of people were mad at Chase for causing the runoff, but this would solve it because there'd be an instant runoff. It wouldn't cost any more money whatsoever, and they would know the results of the election immediately.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
there is no real good argument against it that I've ever heard for why we shouldn't just do it instantly.
So you're saying that a lot of these politicians are just not using rational logic. Is that right?
That appears to be the case.
Awesome. Well, it seems like politicians all across the country aren't really logical, but well, that's a whole nother conversation. Is there anything else in regards to ballot access that you want to share, like the importance of getting the ballot access for Georgia.
Yeah, so it's just important, not just for us as a party, but just for Georgians in general to have more options. Like most Americans agree that there should be more options on ballots, like more than two political parties. And yet the way that the laws are structured just makes that like practically impossible to do. Um, it's a matter of free speech. Even like you might not agree with what a particular candidate has to say, but they should have the right to say it, and for people to be able to vote
Absolutely.
for them if they want to.
Yeah, and then, their ideas will either be accepted or rejected by the general public. But for the government to put arbitrary rules and restrictions on running for office, especially, claiming that, they support democracy and then blocking candidates on the ballot, it just doesn't make logical sense at all, and it's anti-democratic. So I don't know, man. It's frustrating, and I understand, how frustrated you guys are in Georgia because you're the ones that are bearing the brunt of this. In Washington State, where I live, we have to pay a fee. It's just 1% of the salary, or collect signatures, which is a lot easier. It's like 0.5% of the last voters, the people who voted. So it's not even registered voters. It's just, you know, the amount of people that came out and voted in the last election. So it's a much smaller number. I think it's like 480 signatures for a state house representative to get on the ballot, which is fairly easy. Um, Not as easy as some states. I know Ohio is like 25 um, signatures or some crazy low number like that. But
Yeah, Georgia has both. You have to do signatures and pay a filing fee.
you have to do both even. You got to
Yep,
pay money and collect the signatures.
that is
Wow.
correct. Yeah, it is. Yeah, so even if you had no, like, because for nonpartisan races in Georgia, there's no petitioning requirement, but you still don't see a lot of candidates just because there are these filing fees. So people don't just go out there and sign up as a joke. Like people who pay money to be on the ballot are usually doing it because they want to be on the ballot.
Yeah, so that's a poll tax, and it also creates a disincentive for candidates to run for office, barrier to entry, and it also at the same time makes it to where the people who are running for office might be just running for the wrong reasons because they're looking to influence policy in a way that can help their donors or corporations or unions or whatever, because they are getting the money to be able to even get on the ballot, and then they're going to owe favors for that money. Possibly, I'm not making any accusations, but that could be the case.
Yeah, and something that people don't often think about is with all these requirements and petitioning in particular, even if you can meet the requirement, it often takes so many of your resources that then you can't run an effective campaign. So you're disadvantaged from the get go. So even if you
Yeah,
can make it, you're still down.
man, that's crazy. I really hope you guys can do it. How can everyone that is watching this support your guys' effort to get on the ballot?
Yeah, so you can go to lpgeorgia.com. At the very least, you can sign up to receive our emails so we can tell you more information. You can join, become a member. You can donate to the cause. You can sign up to be a volunteer. We need more people to actually be going out there and doing the work.
Yep.
Like we were saying at the very start, people have to be willing to get up and do something. It's not going to happen on its own.
Gotcha. So there's 437 people watching this right now. Most of them probably don't live in Georgia. So if you're watching this and you can afford $5, $10, $50, $100, please go to let's see, pull it up again, lpgeorgia.com and donate and help them get on the ballot, because they can't do this by themselves, and it's going to take a concerted effort from libertarians and liberty lovers from around the country to help them get on the ballot. I can't collect signatures for you, but I can give you $100, right? So if you're watching this right now, do what you can. Joe Hanush says about 1,500 signatures here for the state house, or pay $1,200. Yeah, that's pretty high up there too, but not as not as bad as what you guys have it. So
Yeah, replace the or with and.
yeah.
Um, and
Oh
another
man.
thing that we haven't talked about yet is just the petitioning process itself is made incredibly complicated, to the point where it is very easy to mess up and then have entire sheets of petition signatures disqualified. Like
How
you
does
can
that
only
happen?
gather, so each sheet can only contain signatures from one county. And if you are a notary on any sheet, you can't be a signer. So if you sign the petition and you go through and notarize other petitions, then all those sheets are disqualified.
Oh, so you cannot like notarize it and then sign, so they're restricting your ability to sign if you're a
Right.
notary.
Exactly.
Wow. Yeah, and then the only signatures on the petition form have to be from a single county. So if you
Yeah.
live in a town that borders another county and people come over and shop at the grocery store, you literally have to have two different petitions, one saying this county, the other saying this county, and you got to make sure that people are signing the right one.
Yep. So you end up having to carry around, dozens of petitions. Georgia has a lot of counties. So
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yesterday, Colin told me of 153 counties, correct?
I believe it's 159.
59. Okay. Sorry, I got that wrong a little bit. Yeah, that is crazy. I really hope that you are successful in your efforts to fix ballot access in Georgia. In the meantime, we're running short on time here, so I'm gonna throw your website up. You can head to lpgeorgia.com. Please donate. I know I've asked multiple times, but these guys are doing good work out there. They've got, how many candidates, Brian? All
So we
across the
have
state, not just
so we have
statewide, but
yeah, a total of 9
okay.
currently.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I've interviewed a few of them. You have some really good candidates that are running for office, and it's very encouraging to see not just what you guys are doing in Georgia, but all across the country. It seems like this election season is going to be very good for the Libertarian Party with the quality of people that are running for office, the quality of people like you who are in leadership positions taking this seriously. You know, we are the only political party that stand on the principles of liberty and freedom. It's the only moral and ethical political philosophy in existence because we want government by consent. We want government that is voluntary. We want people to be free and also not infringe on the person, property, or natural rights of another. So, what we are doing here and what you guys are doing is very noble, and I respect that and I appreciate that. So, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you again for letting me come onto your show and talk about this important issue.
Absolutely. So everyone watching, please head over to georgialp.com or lpgeorgia.com and donate if you can. If you live in Georgia, head on over there and sign up to volunteer and get some education on how to collect signatures because it sounds like there's some very sticky rules in place and I'm sure Brian will walk you through that. So
Oh yeah,
thank
we
you
will
very
definitely train you.
there you go. Free training, right? On how to collect signatures. So awesome. Well, thank you again, Brian. I really appreciate your time, and everyone watching, have a wonderful weekend.